Terrifying true crime stories. No one talks about the Zodiac Killer. The first scream of tires cut through the cool December night in 1968. The road was empty, a narrow stretch of gravel near Lake Herman Road in Northern California. Two teenagers sat parked under the stars, the kind of quiet, innocent night that ends with whispered promises and fogged-up windows. But not this time. When the headlights appeared in the distance, they didn't pay attention at first. Another car, another set of high beams. Until it pulled up beside them and stopped. The driver turned off his lights. Silence. Then, a flash. Gunfire shattered the stillness. The first bullet hit the glass, another tore through the car door. The couple, David Faraday and Betty Lou Jensen, tried to run, but the killer was faster. When police arrived minutes later, the scene was chaos. The boy lay beside the car, a single bullet through his skull. The girl's body was found several feet away, 5 shots in her back. The sheriff called it a senseless attack. But deep down, every officer on that scene felt it. Something about this didn't feel random. 6 months later, another pair of young lovers parked on a quiet road, this time in Vallejo, California. The pattern was the same. An isolated spot, darkness, a car pulling up behind them. Only this time, the killer wasn't satisfied with just a clean getaway. He wanted to play. The shots came in rapid bursts. The gunman circled the car, methodical, reloading mid-attack like he'd done this before. Somehow, one of the victims, Darlene Ferrin's boyfriend, survived. Between gasps of pain, he told investigators about the strange man, how he'd been watching them, how it felt like the man was enjoying it. Then, just weeks later, police departments across Northern California received something new, a letter. Written in blocky, uneven handwriting, it began. "This is the Zodiac speaking." He described the murders in chilling detail, things only the killer could know. And attached to the letter, a cipher, a coded message filled with cryptic symbols, triangles, and circles, daring the police to solve it. The Zodiac wasn't just a murderer. He was an author of terror. When his letter was printed in the San Francisco Chronicle, readers were both fascinated and horrified. Amateur cryptographers, teachers, even military codebreakers tried to solve the cipher. Everyone wanted to be the one to decode the mind of the Zodiac. 3 days later, a high school teacher and his wife cracked it. But instead of revealing a motive, it only deepened the horror. "I like killing people because it is so much fun." It was a game, and he was keeping score. By the fall of 1969, the Zodiac had become more than a man. He was a myth, a ghost haunting California's highways. Police couldn't predict his next move, and that was exactly how he liked it. In September, a young couple picnicking at Lake Berryessa saw a man approach them in broad daylight. He wore a strange black hood, with a white crosshair symbol stitched on the chest, a symbol that would soon become infamous. He tied them up. Calm, deliberate, almost polite. Then, without hesitation, he stabbed them over and over. The woman's screams echoed across the lake. The killer walked back to the car, drew the same crosshair symbol on the door with a marker, and signed it, the Zodiac. The survivor, barely clinging to life, described every detail, the calmness, the method, the voice. But still, no one could identify him. Weeks later, a cab driver named Paul Stein picked up a passenger in San Francisco. Minutes later, dispatch received a report. The driver had been shot point blank in the head. Witnesses saw the suspect wipe the car's interior with a cloth, cool, composed, before vanishing into the night. Then, as if mocking the chaos, another letter arrived. This time, it included a piece of Paul Stein's bloody shirt. The police had never seen anything like it. He bragged, taunted, and laughed at the investigators who were chasing him. He even threatened to shoot children as they left school buses, and for days, California's parents were terrified to send their kids outside. Every cop on the case knew what it meant. The Zodiac wasn't just after victims anymore. He wanted to own the city's fear. Each new letter brought more clues, or more confusion. Fingerprints that didn't match, handwriting that changed slightly every time, stories that contradicted themselves. The press couldn't get enough. Headlines screamed, "Zodiac Killer claims 5 more," and "Police receive new death code." And then, silence. For months, he vanished. No letters, no killings, no taunts. It was as if the Zodiac had disappeared into the fog. Detectives hoped he was gone. But those who'd been following his trail, the cryptographers, the journalists, even regular people who'd spent sleepless nights analyzing his codes, knew better. Because weeks later, another letter arrived. This one began with a chilling warning. I have grown rather angry with the police for their lack of cooperation. I shall change the way the collecting of slaves is done. No one knew what it meant, until a retired investigator noticed a strange pattern in the case files. There was something in the letters, hidden in plain sight, that the police had missed. Something that changed everything about the Zodiac investigation. And when they looked closer, what they found inside the cipher made their blood run cold. The Zodiac's words weren't random. Every symbol, every taunt, every letter felt deliberate, like he was orchestrating a symphony of fear. And now, detectives had reason to believe that buried inside his cryptic letters was something more. When San Francisco Chronicle reporter Paul Avery sat at his desk late one October night in 1969, cigarette smoke curling in the air, he noticed something odd. The last Zodiac letter had small imperfections, faint dots between certain symbols, almost invisible unless the page caught the light just right. He magnified the copy. The dots weren't printer errors. They formed a separate pattern. By dawn, crypt analysts from the Navy and FBI had been called in. They spent hours analyzing it, and when they finally connected the dots, literally, they saw what looked like coordinates. Latitude and longitude. The location, somewhere deep in the California wilderness near Mount Diablo. The police organized a small search team. They expected a prank. Instead, what they found left them speechless. At the exact coordinates, hidden beneath a pile of stones and brush, they discovered a black garbage bag. Inside were old photographs, newspaper clippings, and maps, each one marked with Zodiac's signature crosshair symbol. And at the very bottom, a piece of blood-stained fabric. It wasn't from the Paul Stein case. It was something new. Something unreported. When they brought the evidence back to the lab, the test confirmed what no one wanted to believe. The blood type didn't match any known Zodiac victim. Whoever it belonged to had never been found. The discovery reignited the panic. The Chronicle ran the headline, "Zodiac Returns, New Victim?" Letters poured into the newsroom, from terrified citizens, amateur sleuths, even psychics claiming to know where he'd strike next. But one letter stood out. It was written in shaky handwriting and mailed from Sacramento. He's not finished. He watches the watchers. The police couldn't trace it. The fingerprint smudges were partial, the envelope generic. But the phrasing felt too familiar. It sounded like Zodiac, almost as if he wanted to convince the world he was everywhere, controlling the fear even when he wasn't there. Meanwhile, detectives dug into the background of his surviving victims, searching for a connection. But the Zodiac's pattern had no rhythm, no logic. Lovers' lanes, city streets, daylight, darkness. Nothing tied his crimes together except his obsession with attention. That's when a Vallejo officer named Bill Armstrong noticed something chilling. Each attack site, Lake Herman, Blue Rock Springs, Lake Berryessa, San Francisco, formed a rough shape on the map. When he connected the dots, the outline looked eerily like the Zodiac crosshair symbol. Coincidence? Maybe. But to Armstrong, it felt like a message, a twisted signature spread across the geography of Northern California. By late 1970, the Zodiac was untouchable. He wasn't just a man anymore, he was a phantom. Police received dozens of tips every week. My neighbor fits the profile. My coworker has the same handwriting. My husband disappeared the night of the murders. Each lead spiraled into dead ends. Then, one letter arrived that stood apart. It came in a yellowed envelope, no return address, no stamps, hand-delivered to the Chronicle. Inside was a single sheet of paper with only 6 words written. "I'm still here. Are you?" The handwriting was shaky, but unmistakable. And there was something else, faintly visible under the ink, as if the writer had pressed too hard while drafting another message beneath it. Forensic technicians used infrared light to reveal the hidden indentation. What they found wasn't a message. It was a list. Names, dates, And beside each name, a number. One of them was crossed out, Polstein, 7. Another read Blue Rock Springs, 3. But at the very bottom of the list was a fresh name, Riverside. A location that had never appeared in any Zodiac communication before. Detectives scrambled to understand the clue. They pulled case files from Riverside, California, 400 miles south. That's when they found her, Sherry Jo Bates, a college student murdered outside her campus library in 1966, 3 years before the first confirmed Zodiac killings. Her throat had been slashed, her car sabotaged, and weeks after the murder, the local paper received a typed letter. It began, "She had to die. There will be more." At the time, no one connected it to the Zodiac. But the phrasing, the arrogance, the tone, it was identical. When they compared the old letter's typewriter imprint to the Zodiac's early notes, the spacing matched perfectly. Could the Zodiac have started years earlier than anyone thought? The Riverside police didn't want to believe it. They'd had their own suspect, a local mechanic who'd been obsessed with Sherry Jo. But the evidence was weak. And now, with the Zodiac link, their case crumbled. Reporters smelled blood. The Chronicle printed a new headline: Zodiac's first victim? The mystery of Sherry Jo Bates. That same night, the newsroom phone rang. The call was brief, the voice distorted, almost robotic. "Stop digging in Riverside. You're getting too close." Then silence. Investigators traced the call to a payphone near the ferry terminal, the same location Zodiac had used once before to call police after one of his murders. But this time, they were ready. Officers flooded the area, searching every corner, every dock, every car parked by the water. One patrolman spotted movement near the pier, a man stepping into the fog, wearing dark glasses and a navy windbreaker. "Hey, stop right there," the officer shouted, sprinting after him. The man turned, briefly, just long enough for the officer to see his face illuminated by a flickering streetlight. He smiled, then vanished into the mist. When they searched the pier, the officers found nothing. No footprints, no dropped items, no evidence that anyone had been there at all. Except for one thing, a single envelope wedged between the boards of the dock. Inside was a small piece of paper with a new symbol, not a crosshair this time, but something stranger, 2 overlapping circles, like a target or an eclipse. And scrawled beneath it, in shaky block letters, "You'll never catch the shadow." The press went silent for days. Detectives were exhausted, terrified of being taunted again. But deep in the police archives, one analyst noticed something that had slipped through everyone's fingers. A pattern not in the letters, but in the spaces between them. The Zodiac hadn't just been sending words. He'd been sending a countdown. And when they calculated the final date hidden in the cipher, one truth hit them like a bullet. The Zodiac had predicted his own return. And the date was only 3 weeks away.